on FarmSim22, the price predictor, I don't know. It doesn't give you hard and fast numbers on the y-axis. So not there. If I go here to the price predictor, wheat, it's going down, but it's approximately 570, 580 right now. Lowest it's going to get is about 520. Highest it's going to get is about 700. So you've got a general idea which the numbers in FarmSim22, these numbers aren't here. All you've got is your months. So you can just tell relativity. I don't think that it's zeroed at the bottom. So I don't think it's zero on the FarmSim22 graph. It's sort of, it would take, say, 444 to 741 as its y-axis. Oh, okay. I'm looking at the mini-map thinking, why is it like it is? Okay, there we go. So the safest way to do harvesting is to run it on cruise control, because cruise control will auto disengage when the vehicle stop happens. Otherwise you stop, and I think the mod counts to sort of a number, and then all of a sudden you'll start moving again because you're still pushing the throttle, accelerator, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so how are we doing here? I think this is close to, probably got another half load out of the harvester. Oh, yeah. And that tipper will be full. That's another nice feature of FarmSim22, is being able to tell a worker to take your grain cart somewhere and empty it. The oil mill is not an ideal place to tell the worker to go, because if you're storing oil, it will drive all over your canola crates or your oil crates trying to get to the tipping point. But apart from that, sometimes I found it's unreliable in the middle of a field. So you need to get it close to a road and then say, okay, go and empty at the farm site level, go and empty at the production facility, or go and empty at the middle of the map sell point. And the worker will quite happily go there, drop the stuff, and if you've got it all set up right, come back again. I'm thinking what it would work really well if you had a sort of millennial farmer sized wheat field, corn field, because he does corn and soybeans, a couple of harvesters, a big auger cart, and a couple of tractor trailer rigs at the side of the field. You set the tractor trailer rig workers to unload or deliver your corn. You set your harvesters off on workers, which are just going to go up and down the field, and then you run around with the grain auger cart, unloading the harvesters and emptying them into the trucks at the side of the road. And then the trucks workers don't get lost because they're at the side of the road. And so as they fill up, they'll drive off to empty. And the only thing that's doing complicated work is the grain cart, which is just running between the harvesters and emptying them as fast as it can when the harvester is going the right way up the rows. That would be an impressive operation as a solo player. But being able to afford fields that big, and the maps that we've got, they don't have fields that really warrant having multiple harvesters. Unless you want to take the tiny harvesters. But yeah, aspects of the workers are good. However, yeah, big proviso, do not disconnect a worker when he hasn't reached his destination. I think I dropped off my canola at the oil mill, and I told the worker to head back to the farm. And I went back to the farm and was moving the harvester around and harvesting a field. And when I saw the worker get back, I jumped into the tractor and turned it off. Turned off the worker. And theoretically, it would have been okay if the tractor had just gone straight ahead and then taken input from the brake pedal and stopped. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. The tractor's driving along like this. I disengage the worker and it does that. Straight into my crop of barley. And now I've got a tractor that, because there wasn't a worker in it, it's destroyed a couple of tracts of barley, the width of the vehicles that just entered the field. And I've got a tractor in the middle of the field that I can't get out without destroying more crop. Now, fortunately, you can then tell the worker, okay, deliver this tractor to just over there off the field, and it'll do that without destroying the crop, because workers don't destroy crops. But that was a little bit frustrating. But lesson learned, don't disconnect a worker when it hasn't reached its endpoint, because as soon as it reaches endpoint, it's going to stop like that, and then it's going to say AI worker Alpha has reached the destination, and yeah, it's all good. I'm not going to set off a worker because it's going to cost me more in worker fees in the time it takes us to get to the yard and back. So if I had a second one of these, or something similar, I think this is us. I could actually do a shuttle system. I mean, obviously I'd have to drive this down to the yard, start emptying it, and then jump back to the field and use the second tractor and grain cart to empty the harvester, then jump back to the yard as this finished emptying, drive it back to the field, and then we're going to have to empty the harvester by the time I get back to the field. By which time potentially the other cart is now filled up, or close to full. I can top that off and then drive that to the farm, and while it's tipping, empty the harvester using this cart. We got good sized carts here, 30,000 litres, that's a good size. It's a little bit more than 3 loads from that harvester. If I got 10,000 litre harvester, then that would be exactly 3 loads, which would be kind of convenient. Or a 15,000 litre harvester, which is 2 loads, obviously. But the bigger harvesters will fill faster as well. So what you save in times you have to empty them, you lose in in time to go anywhere, because there you go. So now it's tipping out on the rear tipper. So 3 tip options, and two of them have a high tip, the grain doors low tip, so that you can not smash your tipper into the roof of the barn you're in. Anyway, back to the field. So what was that, 150,000 now? For almost a throwaway crop, this has been quite a good harvest. And when we started out, well, actually it was when we'd finished our harvest last year, and we found out that sheep don't accept grass in our fields, and we still, well, more importantly, okay, sheep need a grass product over the winter. There is no grass over the winter, there is only clover, and they won't accept clover. They'll accept clover hay, they'll accept clover high silage, but they won't accept clover, which is a different food requirement. So I've created a couple of clover bales, but I can't use them for anything. So my aim is next time we have the wrapping crew out, is to wrap those 2 bales and sell them as silage. And yeah, that's just the way it is. So I'm going to do hay, clover hay. So I decided that, well, the other thing that sheep take along with grass and clover in that food requirement is maize. And my understanding is the maize is foraged corn. So last fall, I basically said, well, I need to... Woof, that was close, I think. I need to forage some corn. So we're going to wait until early summer to plant the corn, and then we're going to do some sort of forage harvesting to get it off the field. Okay, fine. But then I suddenly noticed that, well, if I plant barley, the barley harvests at the earliest when the corn is due to be planted at the latest. So there is a little bit of an overlap. So technically I can plant barley and corn in the same year, or harvest barley and corn in the same year. So all of a sudden that became our plan. And the engine's off, so let's turn that on. So that's what we're doing here. And this is effectively, I don't care about the barley. It's just going to be extra income. It's just something to be in the field while we're waiting to plant corn. And so there we go. We have barley in the field. And now it needs to come out of the field. If we look at calendar. So the barley starts harvesting here. Barley you harvest for the entirety of summer. We could have planted cotton, except this map doesn't support cotton for sales. So, well, I'm also not sure we can... Well, we have the temperature to grow cotton. Anyway, so soybeans and corn, and then later in the year we're harvesting the soybeans and the corn, and we can plant barley again. Now, surprisingly, that maps to a number of YouTube farmers, real world farmers, who will plant barley in the fall, harvest it beginning of summer, and then plant corn or soybeans and harvest them in the fall. So they have 2 crops in their fields all the time, every year. Thus maximising their growth potential. Now, the barley they use to feed their cows, And the corn, they will occasionally silage, forage to feed the cows, silage over the winter. Soybeans, they will sell as an income source for the farm. So it's additional income to the beef that they're creating. And that's a thing. So the geo on this map actually supports an alternate barley corn or barley soybean production schedule. So that possibly is something we could leverage to increase our income over the year. And of course, I don't envisage us needing all of the corn forage for the sheep. In spite of the fact that we've got over 1,000 sheep, I don't envisage us needing that much. Thought I missed a strand. Yeah. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I could have sworn there was a little bit of barley got missed, but I'm not seeing it. So, how's our tank? Oh, I should be going down the hill for this. So that will be our thing going forward. Well, I will probably do that on a couple of fields each year. We'll just plant barley and either soybeans or corn. We don't have a corn header. We have a helianthus header because we're doing sunflowers, not corn. So no matter what, when we come to harvest the corn, we're going to need to get us some form of foraging equipment and potentially, additionally, a corn header for this harvester. Talking of silage, I believe we have a ton of silage down at the BGA that needs to be sold at some point today. Or maybe tomorrow. Who knows? We have some. It's a thing that we have. Okay. Find the... 90 degrees is about the direction we want to be driving. That's 89, 88, 89.1. That's going to be approximately good. Oh, the other thing I noticed about FarmSim22 is there is a lot more or a lot less deviation from the course you set. So I've turned this, we're on 89.3, and your equipment will pretty much hold an 89.3 right the way across the field. The problem I have here is we're already drifted down to 89, so I need to keep on this field turning right to get us going as close to 90 as I can reasonably manage. So now I'm up to 89.9, but potentially it will start drifting back down to sort of the lower 89s, or not. It makes its own mind up. But FarmSim22, the direction you point your tractor in appears to be a lot more stable. So you get cleaner straight lines. Now you might not be driving on the cardinal 90, 180, 270, 0, or the 45s if you're so inclined. But it does mean I can pick an angle to drive, and if I work out the reciprocal path, I can do a field just driving straight, kind of like this. So we're returning back at 69 degrees because we came up at 89. 89. Oops. I do enjoy this job. This job is not so frustrating. Actually, I don't mind doing much of farm sim. Ploughing can be a pain. So 400 horsepower tractor and a big giant plough is definitely my favoured way to go when I absolutely have to do ploughing. But everything else, if I can get it, since I've got a big giant 400 horsepower tractor or two to run the big giant plough, that also means I can run 12 to 15 metre equipment for every other job on the farm. And so, I've got to go and cultivate a field. Well, no big deal. It'll take me about 10 minutes. I've got to go and, plant a field with corn. Well, it won't take long because I have a big seeder. Because I have a big tractor. So that's all fine and wonderful. It's the I've got a big field and 3 metre seeder, and it's going to take me 3 hours to plant this thing. And that's kind of an issue for me. I don't even mind harvesting 3-4 fields in a row. I mean, eventually I might say, well, I need to go and set him off on a worker while I do something else. Like we were doing earlier. The dude who was cultivating didn't do a precise enough job for my exacting OCD standards. So I'll just set this off on a worker while I go and deal with the rest of that. And then we'll come back to the harvesting. So, again, as I said, no big deal. I wonder if there's any contracts going. Another thing that's really nice about Farm Sim 22 is it segregates. So you've got your ploughing contracts, your cultivating contracts, your harvesting contracts. So you can look down the list for, I want to do some harvesting. There's 3 harvesting contracts. Okay, I'll see which one of those I want to take, or 3. You can take 3 contracts at the same time. So, a little bit of a cheat there, obviously, is you can. Oops, I turned the engine off. Okay. If you look, contracts will expire while they're on the list. That's a thing. If while I'm harvesting this field, potentially what could be happening is by the time I get to the end of harvesting this field, that field over there that looks nice and yellow and potentially ready to harvest might be harvested while I'm doing this one. So if there's a contract for that field, the contract won't expire. It'll still be there, but when you take it, it'll say, the work's done. Never mind. So there are situations where, look, there's 6 fertilizing contracts, but only 3 of them are actually valid fertilizing contracts. The rest have been done or get done unless I say, yes, I'm interested in doing that one. So, but what you can do is if you decide to do a set of fertilizing contracts, if you look at the lowest payout one, it's usually got the worst equipment. And for fertilizing contracts, the equipment really isn't that bad. It's all got very good working widths. The only thing you're losing out on is capacity, but for the most part, even the smallest fertilizer spreader has the capacity to fertilize the biggest field on the map. You're just going to have to go back and get more once you've done that field. But you could take the smallest contract where we actually do. So we look at these. That's a big contract. That's a huge contract. That's a big contract. There isn't any smaller ones. So we'll look at the smallest one and say, okay, if I do this one, you're going to charge me $1,600 if I borrow your equipment. You're going to charge me $3,500 for doing that one. You're going to charge me $1,600. So maybe I do that one and borrow the items, and then I select that one and accept these two contracts. And so long as that first, you have to make sure that you received the equipment on the first contract that you selected. But because that equipment is only usable on full contracts, you can use that equipment on any contract that you've just taken. So I can now borrow the equipment, do all three contracts, do not finish the contract that you borrowed for the equipment for, because then you'll lose access to the equipment. But you can do all three contracts, and right at the end, once you've completed them all, you can then collect the payment, and you're only charged for borrowing one contractor's equipment. So a little bit of a cheat there, but hey, it works. The other thing I'm doing is, because I have a tractor that I can't put narrow tyres on, is I'll take a fertilizing contract and borrow the equipment, and then I'll just take the tractor, attach it to my spreader or my sprayer, and the only allowed to use the equipment for a contract condition is only on the equipment, not on the tractor. So I can now take my equipment and the borrowed tractor, and I can fertilize my fields or spray my fields, and then I can go and do the work that the contract entails with my sprayer or spreader, and still get paid for it, but I get my fields done as well without having to have a tractor that's specifically set up to do it. Unfortunately, I sold my small tractor and I bought a John Deere 6R because I wanted to be able to access the bigger equipment eventually, not necessarily right away. So I'm still running on, for the most part, 3-meter equipment. But when it came to fertilization of my fields, I discovered the 6R does not support narrow wheels on any of the tire options, tire manufacturer options. So, oh nuts, I can't fertilize my fields when there's crops in them, and I could turn off crop destruction. But no, I've got the John Deere 6R, so that's now my tractor, my main tractor, my only tractor. And then 4 months later, the Massey Ferguson 7S came up on the sale, and it's sort of, that would have been a better tractor to get, because you can still do sort of 280, 300 horsepower on it. They both take front loaders, but the Massey has access to narrow tyres, which the John Deere doesn't. So I could spray with the Massey, but I don't have any money left to be able to buy it. So that sucked a bit. So I've been doing fertilization contracts and borrowing small tractors with narrow tyres to complete those contracts, and then using the tractor and my sprayer on my fields, because I can. I think I may swing round and empty this again. That. And I do like the ability to